I'm Dan Ellison at A1 Archery in Hudson, Wisconsin, and I'm here with you today to talk about arrows, and more importantly, try to find the right arrow for you. So, first thing I'm going to take you through is just a real short synopsis of what you're going to get when you buy an arrow. When you buy an arrow, a couple things that you pay for. The straighter an arrow is, the more expensive that arrow is. The lighter it is, the stronger it is, typically the more expensive it is. And I hate to bring up price like that, but it's true. When you're out there looking at an arrow that's, say, $150 a dozen, you look at another arrow that's $100 a dozen, and another dozen that's $50 a dozen. What you're paying for is quality. And that's really what it comes down to, is straightness. For instance, the arrow I'm holding in my hands right now is a Carbon Storm by Easton. This particular arrow has a plus or minus 6 thousandths in straightness throughout the entire length of the shaft. I sell this arrow for $69.99 a dozen. Another arrow that I like to sell, and we sell a lot of at the shop, is a Carbon Express Maxima. Now this arrow has a plus or minus rating of 2.5 thousandths, straightness over 28 inches. This arrow here we sell for $160 a dozen. And so when you look at price arrows, see what fits into your budget and see how important it is to you to have accuracy or a little stronger arrow or better broadhead flight, because that's what you're going to typically get when you buy arrows. The first thing you want to do is do a little research, see what the poundage of your bow is, your draw length, the weight of the tips you're going to use in your arrows. Those are going to help you determine which, not only brand, but model to use in arrows. And what you can always do is refer to an arrow chart. And this particular arrow chart is by Easton. This was going to list out all the arrows that they make, all the different models they make, from aluminum to carbon. And you basically just go off the chart by point weight, how long your arrow is, whether you use a recurve bow, a modern long bow, a compound bow, medium cam, single or hard cam. You figure out that information and you just run down the chart. When you look through this chart on Easton, it's going to take you down to whichever model Easton arrow they're going to recommend for you. So you want to have a chart. You can also find it on their websites or any pro shop that you go to or visit. They should have a chart there. And more than likely, if you were to go to a pro shop, you would ask them to set you up with some arrows, and they're going to set you up with the correct ones. Now what I want to do is just talk to you real quick about carbon versus aluminum. So I got myself an aluminum arrow here, and I got a carbon arrow here. So the main differences between a carbon arrow is weight. This aluminum arrow is going to weigh about 14 grains per inch. This particular arrow here is going to weigh about 9 grains per inch. Well, if you do the calculations, for every 3 grains heavier or lighter an arrow is, you're either going to pick up or decrease your speed by 1 feet per second. So if I have an arrow here that weighs 400 grains, and I have an arrow here that weighs 350 grains, that's 50 grains difference. So I'm going to roughly pick up about 18 to 22 feet per second just by going to this carbon arrow. Now, because I eliminate some weight and I pick up some speed, there is going to be a slight difference in kinetic energy when you actually do the calculations, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be a lot. And through the years, through my testing, it takes quite a bit difference in arrow weight to actually see more than a foot or 2 foot-pounds of energy difference between carbon or aluminum arrows. Okay, so as far as penetration goes, comparing aluminum to carbon, I believe, and I think testing always does show, that carbon will out-penetrate aluminum. And there's a couple factors that make that happen. Number one is the diameter difference of the two shafts. The carbon arrow is a lot smaller in diameter, so thus it's less resistance going through an animal or a target, which you'll find out if you shoot them. So that's going to help with penetration for the carbon. The other thing that you got to remember with aluminum and carbon is that carbon does not bend as easy as aluminum. One of the ways you can find out for yourself is go online and find some high-speed video of carbon arrows and aluminum arrows. And you're going to see that when an aluminum arrow hits something hard, its energy go side to side instead of rear to forward. And what happens is, so if you hit something hard, the energy is released out the sides instead of the front end of the shaft. On a carbon arrow, its energy does not want to go side to side. It wants to go from rear to front. So when it hits, its energy is driven and it does not want to flex side to side, which has more, thus gives you more energy going into the critter or target that you're trying to shoot. When you're out looking for an arrow to use to practice with or to hunt with, I really highly suggest that you pick an arrow that you are going to hunt with. So when you come walking to the pro shop and you ask for an arrow, I don't recommend you saying, give me the cheapest arrow you got because I'm just going to practice. Because things happen. You're going to pick out an arrow that's the cheapest, so it's not going to be straight. It's not going to hold very tight groups when you shoot them, and you just might not be happy with it. But if you're going to use those all summer long, then switch to something better. Well, all your sights are going to be different because most arrow brands and models way different. And you really want to practice with what you're going to hunt. So I really do encourage you, go in, find the right shaft that you're going to use, get it fletched the way you want, or buy some arrows that are already pre-fletched, and just that's what you're going to use. You get down to a few dozen, if you start off with a dozen arrows and you down to 3 or 4 and it's time to get some new arrows, then maybe try something different. Get an arrow that focuses a little bit more on speed. Get an arrow that focuses a little bit more on penetration. There's lots of different arrows to choose from, but I do highly recommend that you go to a pro shop. They're outfitted with the right information, the right charts, everything. Go to them. They're going to get you taken care of, and we'll see you out in the woods.